Judicial Watch doesn't rely on the Republican Party, doesn't rely on Congress, doesn't rely on any administration to do the right thing in terms of transparency or upholding the rule of law. We have expectations that they do the right thing, but if we relied on them, we would be shut down. So my position is that we're just going to keep on doing the work we're doing because we can bemoan whether the Republicans are or are not doing what they should be doing or complain about what the Democrats are or aren't doing. But in the end, it's up to us. And so what Judicial Watch is we're a grassroots group. We've got support of millions of Americans across the country, one of the most widely supported groups in the country right now in terms of public policy. And we're just doing the basic work that Congress doesn't want to do and the administration resists, the deep state agencies, and frankly, some of his appointees resist. And thankfully, we have still the elements, the core elements of the rule of law that allow us to go into court and be on equal footing with these government agencies and get them to give us the documents.
How is Judicial Watch received as an organization and you by those people you're talking about? I imagine you walk in and there's Secretary so-and-so, and he calls you a so-and-so under his breath. They curse the existence. I mean, one of the good things about an organization that differentiates an organization from other organizations is that you get under the skin of whoever's in power. Journalists, again, used to do that too. But now it's groups like Judicial Watch, the Freedom of Information Act requests. Why do these people think they can get away with it, first of all? Because they have for so long?
Well, the Justice Department is run by liberal partisans, and they defend the indefensible and the illegal secrecy by all the other agencies, including themselves. So unless that changes, that's the challenge we face. How do people think about Judicial Watch? I think
the people you expose or potentially ask for information
there are two groups of people. There are people who fear and admire us. Usually it goes hand in hand. They admire our work, but we make them a little bit nervous because they don't know, well, what are they going to ask me about? Right? Because we ask tough questions of both parties. And on the left, they see an effective organization who they kind of hate because of our effectiveness, but admire and want to mimic. And almost every 2 or 4 years, you see a spate of stories saying, how the left is trying to come up with alternatives to Judicial Watch, because there's no one on the left as effective as Judicial Watch in prying loose information from the government and actually educating people about what we find. And because, look, we're a public interest group, and the public's interest isn't served if the public doesn't know about what we're doing. So there are a lot of people out there on the left, and there are some honest liberals out there who want to make sure the government isn't lying and are trying to get documents. But too often their fines are even held up. And it's interesting on the deep state. You get people who have been skeptical on the left of the national security state who are sympathetic to our efforts to uncover what went on and the abuses of Donald Trump, as opposed to kind of the more partisans who don't care what happens as long as it gets the guy they don't like.
On the issue of transparency, is it getting harder or easier, to get answers to basic questions? Anybody can file a Freedom of Information Act request, but it's an art form to get the information you're looking for, to get information that's relevant to what you're searching for, because the people who fulfill them go, oh, they didn't dot that I, or they didn't cross that T, or they didn't put a comma in there so we can interpret it a different way. Is it getting worse in your 20 years at Judicial Watch to get transparency regardless of the party that's in power, or is it getting better?
It's gotten worse. And you know who ruined it? Hillary Clinton. Her email scheme and the withholding of those emails and the conspiracy to withhold those emails just kind of blew up the whole litigation surrounding FOIA and the way agencies handle Freedom of Information Act requests. It used to be you asked for the documents, you didn't get them, you sued, and you just tried to get to a place where you got the documents you could get. You fought over the withholdings, and the government, there was an interest in trying to get the information out. I mean, there was always lawless objections to it. You fought it, but once Hillary did what she did, the government fought us on every step, where in the past they didn't necessarily fight us as hard as they used to. So now the agencies are so hyper aware of FOIA, it's resulted in having to sue to get the time of day.
And the way Hillary's emails were discovered, there was a Freedom of Information Act request looking for emails relative to something from Hillary Clinton, and there were no emails. And like, hey, that's weird. Why aren't there any emails from Hillary Clinton? Does she not email? And then they found out, and the rest is sort of history. They found out, wait a second, she doesn't operate on these servers. Yeah,
that's what happened. We had asked for it's funny, we had asked for Benghazi material. We had noticed there were no Hillary Clinton emails, and we're like, well, maybe we didn't ask the right way. Let's ask again. And of course, we got the runaround, so we sued. And then then they were keep on playing games, and our lawyers pushed back and said, what's going on here? And then finally, in the first part, I think it was 2015 or 14, I think it was 2015, they told the court, we gave Judicial Watch everything we could, except for these other documents. And then, lo and behold, the leak comes out in the New York Times a few weeks later, Clinton emails. So, I mean, FOIA exposed the Clinton. Look, if it weren't for Judicial Watch, we wouldn't know about the Clinton emails. It's a fact. It's a fact.
We'd have President Hillary Clinton.
Certainly, it changed the course of history. I mean, I didn't think Hillary was going to be running for president. So when we were asking for these documents, we had no idea what the consequences would be as a result of the cover-up being exposed. We didn't even know about the hidden Clinton emails for sure at the time. But there was accountability on Election Day. Certainly she wasn't indicted criminally, but, if the American people were sitting as a grand jury, they sure as heck indicted her on Election Day.
In this whole witch hunt mess, is there, in your mind, hope that anybody will be indicted criminally? I mean, you've got the powers of the spying apparatus of the United States that are supposed to be directed outward, directed inward toward Carter Page, who was portrayed as a potential foreign agent, a spy, never been charged, walking free right at this moment. But that was used as the camel's nose under the tent to then spy on the Trump campaign as a whole, and maybe even the Trump administration. There's no doubt that it was, even if the origins were as pure as the wind-driven snow, that it eventually, there came a point when you're spying on Carter Page where you have to realize that he's not a Russian agent, and they should have, by law, pulled back. Somebody said, screw it, keep going, spread that circle, get me more information, keep going forward. I assume with the idea that Hillary would win, so this would never be uncovered anyway, but while we're here, let's look around. Is there a possibility in your mind that anybody will be held accountable, a Brennan, a Comey, maybe on up to the president? Because I can't imagine that his national security apparatus being turned inward was not at least brought up with the man.
Well, there's a chance. I mean, because before a few weeks ago, I would have said, look, there's no indication of a criminal investigation. Now reports have confirmed there's a criminal investigation, which is, despite all the noise about Ukraine and the coup and the attack on President Trump, which is just terrible, absolutely terrible. The biggest headline is we have confirmation from the Justice Department that there's evidence of crimes in the spying on President Trump. So that the spying was not, there's evidence that there was criminal activity tied to the decisions to spy on the president, then candidate Trump, his people, and who knows who else. So now there's a slight chance that there'll be prosecutions. But, we can't say it enough right now. This is what the coup's about. They know there's potential criminal prosecutions tied to the spying on Trump world. And we have the DOJ confirming there's evidence of crimes in terms of the targeting of President Trump. The president is a crime victim. And now he's a victim of a civil rights violation like no other by Adam Schiff and people like that.
It's not even just Congress in the impeachment investigation. The investigation looking at used to be there's a crime, we have to figure out who did it. Now here's a person, let's figure out if they committed a crime. You have the Southern District of New York.
Still harassing him.
The Attorney General of the state of New York essentially was elected on the promise that I will go after Trump. About whatever we'll figure out later, but I will go after Trump.